the numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'm your co-host and managing editor of Zoics Online, Bob Zerl. With me in Deadbug Studios is
Coach Nez.
Visit us at not that one. I'm on the wrong podcast. Visit us at zpnetwork.com, zoicsonline.com. We're on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or Stitcher, all your podcatchers. Rate and review the show, subscribe to the show, help us out. Growing the show, tell your friends, check out old episodes. Our sponsors are
Ragged Records, Davenport, Iowa, and Rock Island, Illinois. We have Legends Picks, Guitar Picks out of Milan, Illinois, and we have RockstarPicks.rocks out of Queens, New York.
Have you been to the new Rock Island location for Ragged Records yet?
I have.
I need to get out there.
Upstairs.
Upstairs?
It's an upstairs.
Pretty cool. Smaller, I'm assuming.
It's smaller, but they have guitars and basses and any type of gear, plus albums and CDs and paraphernalia of whatever.
It's a fun little location over there with the Rostocks nearby, and
I believe they're sharing the building with Daytrotter.
And Daytrotter's over there too.
Or it's somewhere in that vicinity. I'm not really for sure where the Daytrotter recording studio is actually at because it's kind of hidden.
Right.
It's not advertised, so.
Right. Well, for good reason.
Mm-hmm.
Our guest this week is Tal Bergman.
Drummer of many different acts. Rod Stewart, Joe Bonamassa, did some stuff in the hip-hop world, so he's kind of spread out all over the place. Cool guy.
Yeah, very cool. We have several great guests coming up. And if you're here for the first time, please go back and check out our archive. We have lots of drummers that we've talked to. Mm-hmm. We've had lots of artists, big names, small names, everywhere in between. Help us grow the show. Head over to Facebook and like us at the Nothing Shocking Podcast community fan page. Join our Quad Cities Rock and Roll Junkies interest group. Our Twitter handle is NoShockPod. Just like us there, follow us there. Help us grow the show. I want to thank Hong Kong Sleepover for letting us use their music on the show.
New album's coming out. I thought it was supposed to be out in October, but I guess everything is in the rock and roll world nothing is a for sure thing. So it should be coming out soon.
Yeah, it still feels like October, but it's mid-November.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah. Especially when you have all these interviews in the can. It's hard to. I don't know what day it is, what month it is.
I guess maybe for any listener out there, if you have any ideas, if you have any connections with artists that might want some PR, contact us. We'd definitely consider it.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
And there's somebody you want to see that you don't have a connection to, let us know. I mean, obviously, we're not going to probably be able to get Paul McCartney, but you never know.
Maybe Ringo Starr?
Maybe Ringo. That'd be very cool as well. But just, go to our Facebook page. Let us know who you want to see on the show. And sometimes all you got to do is ask. You never know until you ask. So.
And we've had many inquiries.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of times we just can't fit it in. Bob has small children. I have family responsibilities, although my kids are older. But still, all those life just kind of gets in the way,
But yeah, it's like we're rambling, so let's just get to Tal Bergman and enjoy that part of the interview.
Absolutely.
All right, good night.
Good night.
Hello?
Hey, Tal. It's Eric Nesbitt from the Nothing Shocking podcast.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, good. Hey, are you good right now? Is this a good time?
Yeah.
Fantastic. I want to introduce you to my co-host, Bob Zerl.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Well, I want to first of all thank you for all the correspondence throughout the last couple of months that we've done to get you on the podcast. We're really pleased to have you. I know it's been kind of like on, like, hey, I can't do it this now. Can I do it here?
I know.
But this is fantastic.
Well, I made it.
Well, I guess to start things off, you've been linked to almost every style of music under the rock and roll umbrella. Yeah. So what have you been up to professionally right now?
Professionally, right now, I'm mostly staying in LA, doing a bunch of sessions for records, movies, TV, all that stuff. Getting ready to produce a few things, and I also just opened my own music library.
Oh, very cool.
Which is very exciting. Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, well, you're speaking of your music library. Can you kind of give us a little bit more detail about that?
Sure. The music library, pretty much, it's called Tal Bergman Music, a very, unique name. and it's through another library named APM, which is a very, very big library that I have a sub-publishing deal with them, so I have a really big distribution. And the thing is that I'm kind of the curator of this library, which means I put my music and also music that I think it's really good for the purposes of syncing it in movies, TVs, radios, trailers, all that stuff. All the good stuff that you can make back end this day.
Oh, very cool. When I first discovered you, I saw you play live over in Davenport, Iowa with Joe Bonamassa probably about 5 years ago, I think it was, at the Adler Theater. And I was just blown away of your cohesion with such a massive guitar player as of Joe, and with Carmine Rojas on bass. That being said, working with Joe, how has that opened up some extra doors for you here recently in the last 5 years, or has that just been kind of like a status quo thing for you?
If it opened any doors?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. Maybe I got more fans from his side. Work-wise, I don't know if it gets me more work. I was working before and I'm working after. So it's not really, from my experience, the doors that usually open for musicians just by your reputation. Mm-hmm. So if your name is out there and people know that you deliver the goods, that will open doors. So obviously, I'm sure Joe is one more. I'm sure it helps, but not in it's not like I got a call from somebody else and said, "Okay, I saw you with him. I want you to do this and this for me."
Oh, very good. Mm-hmm.
So you can't trust that to supply your work.
Exactly. Versatility, speaking, when you decided, to become a professional musician, was it your goal to take apart as many genres as possible? Or did this all kind of happen by chance for you, by just taking as much work as you possibly could?
Well, I started when I was 6 years old. And, I grew up in Israel. And for me, at those days, it was really was that a good drummer needs to be able to play everything and everything really good. So I would say I'm really like an all-around drummer, so I really learned to cover any style of music you will throw at me, pretty much. And also my background is also in classical percussion. So I really learned sight reading and all that stuff really well, which is very, very helpful. me. So, and I love to play it all. So, from bebop to hard rock and anything in between, I'll do it.
You said you started at 6. What were you listening to then, and how did your taste as a fan evolve from when you first started to kind of into your teenage years? What were you kind of listening to back then?
Well, there was not much to listen back then in Israel. So I think when I started playing, my father made me a drum set from tin drums that I used to take to kindergarten and make a lot of noise with. He even made my own hi-hat and a bass drum pedal. And, so it was just like a natural thing that I really wanted to do it. And I started my first lessons when I was 6. So, we used to get later on all kinds of cassettes over there that nobody really knew what it was. It was like somebody was recording some records and then they would sell it to you. So, for instance, I had crazy African music. And I used to play to that cassette all the time, and like 10 years later, I found out it was Ike and Tina Turner.
Amazing.
So it was, I even thought that Led Zeppelin was a girl singer when I was a kid. So it was really, so besides studying, like snare drum forever and like timpanis and xylophone and all that stuff, I also used to play with a lot of cassettes at that time that I had. Yeah, which is, I think, influenced me a lot at that time.
At what point does the producing take on? Is that kind of once you get established in the industry and you just kind of eventually move into that side? Or were you always into it?
I think, drummers usually are natural producers because of the nature of their instrument. You're already producing like 3 or 4 different parts at the same time when you play. You orchestrate it between the drum set, and you really know how stuff needs to sound balance-wise and stuff like that, because naturally you're holding the grounds as a drummer. So you also really listen always to everybody, and you feel when stuff sounds good. So I think my first production was when I was in New York, and I was working with a friend of mine, Warren Bourlet. He's a great engineer and producer, but at that time he was an engineer, and I was a drummer with some singer. And at one point he says, "Hey, why don't you produce me?" And I'm like, "Okay." I had no idea what it is, because all I knew was that there is arrangers. I really didn't know the job of a producer. So it kind of fell on my lap, and I said, "Of course, I'll do it." And I learned by doing. And it comes, I think it's a natural thing. It's more of a question of taste and knowing really, it's not about being just an arranger or just a musician or this. You have to look at the whole thing. And producing is a lot to do with who's the artist, and it's a lot to do with who is the first thing I always ask is who is the target audience, and then when you produce whatever you produce, you have to keep in mind that this is who you're producing it to, and you cannot, you can't make somebody be somebody else. So I would say a really good production is if you don't even notice the producer.
Yeah.
So you got to get the best out of the artist, and he needs to feel the most comfortable. Because if he's not comfortable, you can go home.
I guess this might be like a twofold question for you. As far as performing and producing in so many different genres, is there a style or a genre that challenges you more as a musician / producer, or one or the other, where if you're coming into this kind of project, that this one is going to be a little bit, this genre is a little bit more trying for you and your style of play?
Well, I never really think about if it's trying or not. I wear two different hats when I'm producing, and I'm also drumming, which happens a lot of the times just because that's how it happens. Then I think every time that I'm producing, I become a better drummer because I listen in different ears. So it helped me being a better drummer by producing. And also, as a musician, I know how musicians like to deal with producers. So one helps the other, and you really have to be very, very objective. I mean, I really love to produce stuff that would be, if it's something that I really like, obviously it would be nice to have a great song, but a lot of times you don't have great songs. And you say, okay, how do I make this 3 or 4 minutes interesting to the listener that you can be delivering the song and they're still engaged without doing like crazy stuff that will take away from the song. So then it becomes in rhythm and in voicings of chords or whatever style you're in. You want to stay true to the style, but I also love to really take some chances and combine and pull from different genres into like if I'll do a funk record, I will pull some world music into it, or obviously rock, and vice versa. So, and you can always throw some jazz in there. I do a lot of stuff. If you see, like in the records that I produce for the band that we have, Rock Candy Funk Party, that we already have I think 3 CDs and 1 live DVD. And that's also, that came out from me playing when I was playing with Bonamassa. And I had that band with Ron De Jesus, which is a great funk player. Mm-hmm. And a jazz player. He's a great guitarist. And Joe said, why don't I come in with that? I said, sure, you can come and sit in with us. And before you know it, it led us into the studio and all that stuff. So, like on those records, I can allow myself to really go more crazy with the styles because we're really doing it for the love of playing and not really trying to be anything commercial. Because you're not going to make money of it anyways. So we play what we love. So you can have on one record, 10 different styles. Which is a lot of fun. But you have to, when you do that, you got to have musicians that can really play all that stuff, really convincing.
How has technology affected you as a producer over the years? It seems like it's more and more convenient to record. You don't have to be in the same room really even anymore. Has that affected you as a producer at all?
Well, it affected musically. Music is being affected to the max from that. Mm-hmm. You listen to radio today, like Top 40, if you would hear a live drum set, let me know. So obviously it affects. I always say that if I use the technology and other technology uses me, then I'm okay. So I'm all for it. I'm all for being as modern as can be, and I use it all the time. But it depends on the project that I'm working on. Is I set my limits to what I do, because usually when you're in a digital domain, there is so much stuff you can do that there is no end to it. And then you can also ruin what you're doing. For example, again, if I do, I'm talking about Rock Candy, for instance, we are set in that we are recording everything live like old school. Even though it goes to Pro Tools, it goes live as a rhythm section, maybe with few overdubs, but the main meat and potato is played live. And also, I put a rule that I'm not quantizing it. So the playing is really live, which means it's with the perfection and imperfection and the swing of musicians and the way it feels, it's really like you used to do records back in the day, even though I do it in a very modern way. But then if I want to program some weird stuff or really I can take a sound and morph it into something totally different, I'm not afraid of doing it. And I suggest everybody, to learn as much as possible of whatever new technology is out there, because if not, you're going to be left in the dust.
Absolutely. I kind of want to take this a little bit different direction with you. Here in the States, and obviously very well that, rock and roll can be a very fickle, very snobbish thing where people draw lines in the sand like, oh, I love this band, but I hate this band. With your tour, you've toured all over the world, obviously, and throughout your career, do you ever find an area in the world where you just don't have those barriers up, where there's not that rock and roll snobbery that exists here in the States?
Sure. Well, a perfect example is Europe. At least it used to be like that. I think it's still like that. Now I think it's all changing because everything is about streaming. But before, when you had the radio station over in Europe and people grew listening to it, that station had many styles of music. So people were much more open-minded. There was less of musical segregation, And where in the States, somebody can grow up and only listen to R&B channel, or he grows up and he listens only to a metal channel, and that's all they know.
Mm-hmm.
So people are more open to merging of styles and different styles and appreciating music, and also, like jazz, which is, the American art form, is doing better outside of the States. Always was, because people are more open to experimental and stuff like that. I think today, all over the world, because of Spotify and whatever other streaming stuff, maybe, I'm not sure, but people now are going to be segregated again everywhere because they choose only what they want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not really open or listening. They can live all their life listening to their favorite band, and that's it. Instead of, there is no DJ say, okay, I'm going to play this now. And it's like, oh, what's that? I never heard it, but I like it. So there is a difference in different places where people are more open.
I kind of or go ahead.
Go ahead.
And I was going to rewind a little bit. We kind of talked about your, as a kid, and you were exposed to music, learning on your own, but then you got kind of bootleg cassette tapes. Where kind of that transition to, from teenager to being a professional, can you kind of walk us through, where you got your start in terms of actually making money as a musician?
Oh, I made money when I was 10. I played my first wedding when I was 10. Me and a friend of mine, he was playing for FISA. I remember it very clearly because it was a Jewish wedding. And every time, I don't know how we got that gig, but we got the gig. I was 10, he was probably 14. And they told us that every day in a Jewish wedding, when they break the glass, we have to start a particular tune. And we really fucked it up big time because every time they moved, we start playing, and everybody was looking at us like we were crazy. So that was my first paying gig, and since then I've been working, and because of in Israel, I really started doing sessions at a very young age, which gave me, I think, a lot of experience. That by the time when I got to the States, I had a lot of experience in the studio compared to other people my age. So I've been working professionally, since I'm a kid.
Wow.
And I always say that, and people I always wanted to get paid when I play, which is because everybody likes musicians to play, but nobody wants to pay.
Exactly.
What brought you to the States? Was it a specific artist, or were you just kind of coming for more opportunity?
Well, no. Well, first of all, I always wanted to play with better musicians than me. I always wanted to. I always think the best lesson you can get is play with people better than you, and then you really learn and you shine. So it was a natural thing for me because when I was in Israel and I was a kid, I would say, "Hey man, you're great, blah blah blah," and for me, it's like it doesn't mean anything. It's okay, but I want to know where I am. I want to get better, and it was all it was always go to New York. Mm-hmm. So I went to New York, and I started there, and it took me, I would say, maybe 6 years before I got my first real gig in New York, back in the day. And that was with Blood, Sweat, and Tears.
Oh, wow. Well,
so,
yeah.
So
your film and TV scoring composition work has been well documented. I guess the kind of taking this to the direction is, what kind of brought you into scoring film and TV? How did that all work out for you?
Well, it's funny because I always say that I score movies with 2 fingers. Because I cannot call myself like a great keyboard player or I really know what's right for the scene. So that's one thing. And also I must say that both my wife and my brother are in the movie business. They're both, she's a producer and a director, and my brother is a producer. So it kind of almost naturally sometimes fell on my lap to score because, it was just there. And if I felt that I have something to score that it's something that it's not my forte, I would get friends of mine that I know that would be really good, that I can collaborate with. There is no ego. It's whatever gets the job done. And obviously, music for movies, it's, I would say, more of a craft than an art. So you really have to, it really needs to help the story and move it along without really being noticed. Or, it's not a place for you to show off how good you are. Which a lot of young composers, they think about how they look and don't think about what works for the movie.
Absolutely.
And even that is changing a lot, as you see a lot of people that make music for movies these days can be DJs or, stuff that before you wouldn't think they would be scoring, but they're doing a great job because it brings it from a different place. It's not all needs to be orchestral or classical oriented or whatever. It can be, sound design in rhythm. It can be many things. It just naturally happens to me. The thing is that one of the things now with scoring movies is, even in movies, everything goes to streaming. Mm-hmm. So, and with streaming, there is really no back end money-wise so much as if it would be on TV or, theaters. And so you have a lot of people competing. And so if there is a movie that is like really high budget, it will be very... Also, you have composers that have done 300 movies and that I'm competing against, and it's like, good luck. It's not so easy. That's why there is a lot of stuff that I do that ends up in a lot of TV shows and stuff like that. And that's why I also opened my library, because it's stuff that I can do by myself. I don't even have to score it to picture. And then the editors like it and they put it in there. Oh. and stuff like that. And so, it's a changing world there also.
Yes, it is. I wanted to kind of take this back to you for a minute about touring. I asked this to all of our guests that come on. Where you are in your career. Touring has taken on all these multifaceted, theories of touring. Traditional, get in the bus, play with the weekend warrior, or play in the festivals somewhere over in Europe, et cetera, et cetera. We can go on and on. But where you're at in your career now, where does your preference lie when it comes to touring?
So either I make a lot of money or I really love it. Or if it's both, that's perfect. The thing is with touring, I love touring. I love playing live as much as I love it in the studio. So I always need to get the balance. And I love the energy of touring. I love especially if you tour with friends, then you have a great time. I mean, it's one of the best things you can do. And the best thing about touring is that you don't have to think what you're doing tomorrow.
Exactly.
And that's a very relaxing thing for a musician. It's like the only sense of security you will ever feel as a musician is when you know, okay, I have this tour for the next few months. It's like, okay, where am I tomorrow? Okay, thank you. They're just, you're like a baby. They tell you what to do and you just do it.
Oh, very cool. I kind of wanted to go to talk to you a little bit about It Had to Be You, the Great American Songbook, your work with Rod Stewart. I guess, can you tell us a little bit more about this opportunity that came your way and doing such a, I guess maybe what I would consider to be a massive project? Sure. Yeah, tell a little bit more.
Yeah, well, that came from me doing a session as a drummer for a producer named Richard Perry, which is a huge producer that produced, I don't know, tons of stuff. And I did the session for him, I forget, for some singer. And I guess he really liked my patience in the studio because he had me do pretty much, I would say, every bar he wanted me to punch in for a whole song, which took I don't know how many hours. And it's like, okay, whatever. I'm wearing that hat. I'll do it. So he said, listen, I'm doing something with Rod Stewart. We're doing standards. I want you to hear it. I want your opinion. So I'm like, okay. I came to his house. He played me the stuff. And, he didn't kill me. What he did, it sounded a little bit like, he's trying to be a jazz singer and this and that. And it was not, I'm not going to say here what I said because it's going to be on the podcast. But I left there and I called, as soon as I left there, I called my friend Renato Neto, which is an amazing pianist, used to play with Prince for a long time. And he's also playing on all the Rock and the Funk Party records. And we go back and I said, I'm meeting you right now. I have an idea. It's like, okay. So I drove directly to him. And I think I chose I had this song called My Funny Valentine, which is a known standard. And I said, let's just do a playback of that, but think about it like something between Portishead, Massive Attack, and Sade. And he was like, really? I said, yeah. And let's strip some of the chord changes and everything, and let's just do it like that. So we did it. Then I said to Richard, set up a meeting with Rod Stewart. And he said, well, are you crazy? I said, no, set it up. So he said, okay. And he was there with, I think I met with, he said, we're going to go to dinner, come there. I didn't tell him that I have any recording of it or anything. So he came there, and I think Rod was with Nastasia Kinski or something. Yeah, it was her. And we talked, and I said, I have a concept for your standards record. He's like, really? Like, yeah. And I said, check this out. And I played it. And it was like a total, like a very sexy groove, very Deep Pocket, and Nastasia Kinski was like, I love it. Lucky me. And then so Rod said, okay, so when are we starting? I said, next week.
Wow.
So we started working on that record. And he asked me if I have a recording studio. I said, of course I have a recording studio. But I didn't. so I remember then my wife, me, and Renata drove all over town looking for a place just to make it to a studio. And we found it, and maybe then from there on, we worked on that record for a year and a half, I think, if not more.
That is awesome.
So that's how it started.
Very cool. I wanted to kind of touch upon your work, within hip hop. You worked with Tribe Called Quest, MC Lyte, De La Soul, LL Cool J, and so forth. I guess the question I have in all this is a lot of rock and roll purists are, they'll say, the hip hop community is all about sampling, and there's no musicianship behind it. That's the ignorance in all of it. But obviously that's not true. We know that. But I guess on your end of things, how did you get involved in the hip hop game back then?
First of all, I've been playing funk all my life. So anything that has to do with funk and R&B is very natural to me. And I got to do that. It's because I did, because I was kind of known in New York for somebody who plays like strong beats, and I can really play, that era really well.
Mm-hmm.
I did a record. I think it was Doug Wimbish, bass player, that flew me from New York. I was living in New York then. He flew me to LA to work with a band called the Booyah Tribe, which are Samoans.
Mm-hmm.
And they were doing a live, which usually is not happening on that kind of music. But it was a live record with everybody from, I don't know, you had all the famous funk guys of the time being on that record,
mm-hmm.
like a lot of stars. And I was the drummer. And one of the guys from there his name is Pops Cool Love, one of the guys that was arranging and producing for them. He got to do the MTV Unplugged with LL Cool J. Remember that?
Yes,
raps, the live raps?
Yes.
So he actually, that's how I started hooking up with that, because he got me to be the drummer on that. And that opened many doors, because I played, I was pretty much, I would say, the first live drums on a rap. Was me doing it. And when I did it and we played it, I felt that if I would play like a total straight R&B funk thing, it's not going to really come across as powerful enough. So I made myself this creative decision, which I didn't tell anybody and nobody really asked me. And I played all that stuff more funk rock, which I brought more open hi-hat to it, and really, really, some of the stuff really went to rock on it, even though playing it funky. And that helped a lot with the energy. So, sometimes you just have to do stuff.
Exactly.
And, and so a lot of times I do a lot of, I can play the same groove for 2 hours without even changing, without doing one drum fill. I love doing that kind of stuff. So it's naturally, and I think hip hop, and especially, a lot of that stuff is extremely innovative. Because a lot of those guys, they just do stuff without really thinking about rules.
Mm-hmm.
And the only rule they have is that it feels good. So you can come up with stuff that is really different. And I'm all for people creating stuff.
Absolutely.
So I never really dissed anything, I mean, where is rock coming from? You know, it comes from R&B. So
Right.
it's all, you know, it's all intertwined. It's really all the same stuff. It's just, you know, a little different attitudes on everything.
Yeah, no,
But I believe that, you know, people should play everything. You know, if it's good, you can, you know, I don't argue with success. I learned that a long time ago.
No, that Unplugged LL Cool J, that was groundbreaking at the time. I remember I never put two and two together that was you there till just now, but that was a fantastic Unplugged, one of the best ones they've ever done. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Have you seen the movie Hired Gun at all on Netflix?
Hired Gun?
Yeah, it's about basically guys, you know, it's people who are hired.
Oh, yeah.
The documentary.
I saw I saw about it, but I didn't see it yet.
Oh.
Yeah, it was like a few session players and like sidemen.
Right.
It's a movie about sidemen. No, I gotta see it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm curious, you know, your opinion on it if you ever do get to see it, just how accurate it is. It just seems pretty, you know, is it, in terms of, it seems like some people are really difficult to work with and other people are really easy to work with. I mean, has your career kind of shown you that? Has it been pretty, I guess, has it been harder?
I usually, you know, I mean, I must say that most of the work I do, people are not hard to work with because they want you to work with them. So if they want you to work with them, they already kind of somewhat know you or like what you play. So they're not going to be really difficult. It's, you know, you can have creative differences, which is perfect. It's all good. You know, I always say when you start working, you know, leave the egos outside. Because we all have them, and I am easy to work with. On if somebody wants me to do something, I remember it was a period of time where grunge was really big, and I think I did a record for Belinda Carlisle, and they really wanted me to play everything kind of like some of the tunes like in a way I just learned how to play. I'm like, okay, I can do that, no problem. You know,
That's hilarious.
I you know, it's like, you know, you can't take it too serious. It's music, and people want different stuff. So I can't say that I have. I'm sure I had in my life a few times where it didn't work or didn't click, but you know, if somebody's really tough to work with, then you don't work with them. That's a big deal.
I have one last question to ask you, and this is kind of like a obscure kind of question because we're coming out of down from our allotted time. But you worked with Terrence Trent D'Arby. I'm not sure what album you worked with. I know his first album.
I didn't play on his record. I actually played with him in Europe, and we did TV shows in Europe, and also his videos. Yeah, and who got me on that gig? Stevie Salas got me on that gig.
I guess
back in the day.
I you know, the thing is that what kind of bummed me out is that, you know, he changed his name. He pretty much got out of the rock and roll business or got out of the music business altogether, and he's kind of under like a new name. I don't know if it's
a new name
or is it Sonata Matria or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess from your knowledge of what you know, is on his side of things, do you know is he done with music? Is he just done with that part of his life? Is he moved on? I
don't know. All I can tell you that he was the nicest guy, and I would say the really generous and an amazing musician. Like, he was a great musician, a great frontman. I think some people twisted what he said for him to sound snobby or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never, you know, he was really, you know, really great. Like, you know, I mean, I was on tour with him, and unfortunately I quit because I went back on tour with Billy Idol.
Oh, okay.
And then, but he was really cool about it. Even then, I said, listen, man, we have 2 months, but here we're giving me a year and a half.
Yeah.
I had to go, which I don't think I've ever done. But at that point, it was like an offer I couldn't refuse. And, obviously I didn't live till we found somebody that can replace me. But he was really, really great. I think he lives in Italy or something.
Right.
And he knew how to live, and I'm sure he knows how to live now. He was really, he was lots of fun.
We
spent one. Yeah.
I found it to be incredibly disappointing when I read the article about his disappearance from the music industry, and I always thought that his debut album, The Hard Line to Terence Trent D'Arby, was one of the best debut albums I've ever heard from anybody. It was that good. When you see or when you hear of talented artists like that just kind of walk away from the business. I guess, is it a burnout thing? Your feelings, is it a burnout thing, or to lose a talent like that that's still out there?
Well,
Go ahead.
I really think that it's more, he has his own voice. I think the first record he didn't produce. The second record he already produced and played a lot of the instruments. And it was a departure from the sound that people expected him to have. And it probably didn't do as well as he thought, and maybe, I don't know what else happened. So maybe that made him, some people, it's a tough life. Unless you really are willing to persevere, and you say, okay, well, fuck it. I'm going to move somewhere else and then change my name and start again as something else. I don't know. Hey, I can't be the judge or jury of that.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sure that he, for him, it was the right decision. Mm-hmm. He made it already, so now it's like, okay. And because there is a big price for these guys to pay, Yeah. We are lucky. I'm lucky. If I walk on the street, nobody recognizes me. Maybe like a Bonamassa fan or somebody see me on some video. That's about it. Yeah, but a guy like him, he probably couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So you
Very
have to
true.
really, it comes with a price.
It does. Well, we're coming down to our allotted time, but before we let you go, is there anything that you would like to promote or plug before we let you off the hook tonight?
Sure. Everybody should go check Rock Andy Funk Party. You can go to rockandyfunkparty.com, and that band pretty much, puts together everything we spoke about into music.
Oh, very cool.
So, if people like real music, where musicians really get to interplay and play together and have fun, I'm sure they can find something good for them over there. And, I just hope that there's going to be more musicians keep on playing.
Fantastic.
It's the most fun in the world.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say.
We want to thank you for your participation on the Nothing Shocking podcast. Before we let you go, I just want to let you know that your episode will be available about 5 to 6 weeks. And when it is, I will make sure I send you the link. You'll be the first one to get it. And then we'll share it on social media, and we're going to share it on our social media. And we want to thank you once again.
Let me know. I'll share it too.
Oh, fantastic.
Send me the links. I'll help also.
Okay. Well, fantastic.
And if you need anything more, you have more questions, till then, let me know.
Absolutely. We want to thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Have a good night.
I appreciate it. Okay. You too. Bye.
Bye.
Power in the verse can stop me.